Fighting game content is a topic everyone was talking about 3 days ago, so it is a topic that I will talk about now. I've talked about this topic a number of times in a couple of different videos, so instead of rehashing some of the things I've already said, I want to focus more on some of the common threads and pieces of thought that I saw on Twitter and whatnot. The first common thread that I saw was there were a few people who were saying like, the content that you want to see already exists out there. It's just that the community doesn't support those people and doesn't watch those people. So it's not getting pushed into the algorithms and more people aren't seeing it effectively. I've heard that criticism from people that have more subscribers than me, less subscribers than me, more viewers, less viewers. And I think it's a really valid complaint, especially when we're talking about instances where like maybe a smaller creator has an idea, invests a lot of time and resources into getting that done. Post the video, they don't really get a lot of traction, but then somebody else replicates it, and because they just have a more recognizable name, they're able to push the idea further and get more traction out of it. I could totally understand how that would be a really frustrating thing. And another thing, I think my perspective is probably going to be a little bit skewed on this as somebody who was fortunate enough to sort of come in and make a bunch of videos in late January during the release of Tekken 8 and just coming out of that doing pretty well. Certainly that has skewed my perception of what it takes to make or break it, right? In general, however, I am very hesitant and very reluctant to place blame on the audience for what they do or don't watch, because for me, being a content creator and placing blame on the audience for what they do or don't watch sort of comes down to, it's kind of like being a fighting game player and blaming the game's balance or the game's design for being the way that it is. Like, yes, it is valid that like maybe you have your criticisms of this game and, you know, things that could be better about it. But in the meantime, this is the game that we're playing and this is kind of what we have to work with. So like, let's talk about, you know, more constructive things than that, I suppose. One thing I wanted to speak to was the notion that audiences don't know what they want. I saw people saying like, hey, I've had instances where people come into my comment section and they've asked me to make videos on such and such topic, and then I invest a lot of time, make that video, and then they don't watch it, right? And I've totally had that experience as well. I think it is true that like people, it's not that they don't know what they want to watch, it's just that they only speak for themselves. And even if you have like 20 individuals who are all asking you for a specific type of thing, and that makes up like, I don't know, 70% of the comments that you receive or whatever, it doesn't necessarily mean that like 70% of your total addressable market is going to be interested in that video, right? It just means that 20 individuals have asked you for it, right? So for me, when it comes to whether I'm creating a video or not, how do I explain this? It comes down to a matter of philosophy. Is your YouTube channel something that has positive and negative momentum to it? Or is every video an island on its own that can fail or succeed on its own merit? For me, I tend to, for my own sanity, lean towards the latter. I tend to believe that every video is an island that is able to fail and succeed on its own merit. And that means that I'm less concerned about putting out a video that's maybe only going to get a couple of hundred views. So I've had an instance where people in my comment section were asking me around that launch of Tekken 8, like, hey, can you make a video on frame data? I don't entirely understand how it works. And I did, and it was for sure my worst performing video at that time. After like a week or two, it only had like a couple of hundred views. And for me, I reflected on it, and my videos are relatively simple to make. I kind of just record a dialogue, sort of walk over what I'm working on, and it's very quick and punchy and easy. So for me, it's like, okay, I took like 3 or 4 hours. I made this video on frame data. I got it uploaded. I made the thumbnail, right? That all took 3 or 4 hours. A couple of hundred people watched it. Maybe, you know, only like 20% of those people that actually helped. Maybe I didn't help every single person that clicked on it. Is it worth 3 or 4 hours of my time to help like 40 people? Yeah, I think so. I feel like that's a pretty good use of my time. Like, if making content is your job and you're very concerned about getting a return on investment, and also if your investment in making the video is also really high, we're talking about like spending a lot of time on editing, spending a lot of time on research and script writing, maybe hiring other people to help you work on the video, taking multiple weeks of work to do one thing. Obviously that influences the return that you need on it. Every individual video as well, right? But if this is not literally your job, I think it's a much better mindset for you to have that you just upload a video and maybe it only helps 5 people, and that's okay. That was a worthwhile spending of your time, right? If you can shift yourself to that mindset, I think that's incredibly beneficial. I think the fact that people are going to be watching pro players over somebody like me is just kind of like, it's like a given. Like there's already an inherent interest in that person's name, so they just have more attention and more eyes on them in the first place. So even if we make identical content, more people are going to see their version of it than my version of it. It is what it is. So for me, what I think is really important is, if you are a small creator, being pretty active and like trying to point people in the right direction and trying to support other people that are next to you. This was really important to me, like at the end of January, early February, because again, I know how fickle I am. I knew that like I was going to be making Tekken videos for a couple of weeks and it could leave at a moment's notice, and it did. So for me, it was really important that I make a video that's like, hey, here are the people that I recommend for various different character guides. Hey, here's this person who's making really good content. I think you should really support them. Hey, you know, Tricky's making good stuff. I really, really like her. I want to, you know, have her on and talk to her and, you know, get her in front of more people, right? Like all of those people would have succeeded without me. There's no doubt in my mind. I don't, you know, it's not about that. What it's about is just like wanting to pay it forward and wanting to support other people that you like. Like the fact is that if we're trying to combat people just watching the people that they're aware of, the only way that you can do that is by making more people aware of you and aware of us. I think that that's a collaborative effort, because an individual one of us doesn't have the eyes on us to be able to send more people out, but obviously a network of people can all redirect their like individual 2% of the audience to other people and like get them to the appropriate places and all of the different content that they would actually enjoy, right? I think honestly there should be a lot of openness with communicating ideas, exactly the same as fighting games. Like we should have a Discord where we're talking actively about strategies, like different thumbnails that we're happening to experiment with, different video ideas that happen to be working and popping off. Like I really do view content creation as a collaborative effort, and I think that there's enough out there for everybody to succeed. One thing I did want to talk about is wanting to be a little bit more clear about what our goals for success are. So, you know, one thing that came to mind was that like you could have, if you're making like a entertaining, like comedic Akatsuki Blitzcomp video, it could be the most entertaining, funniest video that I've ever seen in my life. But because it's about Akatsuki Blitzcomp, it only has like a reach of like maybe 10,000 people, maybe. It just doesn't, realistically, it's not going to like hit in the same way that like a Maximilian's Assist Me could, right? Like it's just not on the same scale. If we're talking about a community where like everybody in it is trying to go full time making videos, then like obviously that's one thing. But I feel like for a lot of people that like work full-time jobs and just like do this as like a fun thing on the side, like it should be totally fine for you to like make a video that's going over a piece of tech for like one individual character in the game that you really, really like, and just accepting that like, hey, realistically this is gonna help like maybe 100 people tops, and that's fine. That's like a success. That's not a failure on your part. That's good. Those are the people that you could reasonably help, right? So I think success for any individual video is much closer than it probably seems. If the question is like, why does the FGC not put up Mr. Beast numbers, then there are all types of conversations that we have to have. We have to have conversations, one, about the legibility and the readability of our games. This implies that we're putting our videos in front of people who don't know anything about fighting games, because we're trying to leave our real addressable market, right? So these are people that don't know anything about fighting games. We have to adjust the legibility, one. We have to be able to construct stories in an appropriate way. We have to find ebbs and flows in those stories to try to keep people interested for extended periods of time. We have to be able to sort of imply a reward and then withhold that reward for a certain period of time to be able to keep people there and invested. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that goes into like creating these like viral, like psychologically hooking things. But like the real thing is like, would you even want that? Like, do I want a massive influx of people that like aren't even really interested in what fighting games are truly about coming in and trying their hand because like they saw a funny like meme video that was like really well edited and put together, right? Probably not. Those probably aren't people that would be here for the long haul. I think like what's better is just to talk about fighting games earnestly as they are, because I think that's compelling enough to the people that they're supposed to be compelling to. We just kind of have to accept that like this community is growing. Like, it is growing. It's just growing at a stable rate, and that's fine. Like, it doesn't need to be growing any faster, I don't think, necessarily. And if it does with like a 2x KO or, you know, God forbid the Hunter x Hunter game, beautiful. I love that. That's great. But we probably, like, there's no like crafting a viral thing that's like, that's not real. I don't think that's real. But yeah, those are my major takeaways, my major thoughts on this conversation. I think smaller creators should be collaborating and sharing good ideas with one another. Not collaborating in the sense of like being together in a video, but like collaborating in terms of like sharing information and tech and like good ideas, right? I think this can be a collaborative effort, and I think there's enough of an audience here that everybody could succeed. I think if those smaller creators want to be competitive with people that already have people's attention from other like professional ventures, then I think that those smaller creators have to be willing to give each other attention and to call each other out and support each other and whatnot. The stronger you build like a network, I think the better that would go. And I think we have to redefine what success means on a case-by-case basis. If you're creating tutorials and guides for like Patreon fighting game, then maybe it only reaches like a couple of hundred people, and that's great. That's phenomenal. That's a great thing. You know, all of this content deserves to exist. The more resources there are out there for people, and it doesn't even just have to be educational, even entertainment stuff. Like I need more things to watch as well. Please keep creating stuff. These are just my thoughts in terms of supporting one another and succeeding. And yeah, all right. Let me know what your thoughts are. I would love to read them. Thank you so much. You have a good one. All right. Peace.